Australia's Prime Minister Scott Morrison is caught up in political mud-slinging back home. His country's pavilion at Expo2020 Dubai is trying to create a serene, dreamlike experience for its visitors. Australia is just weeks away from a hotly contested general election, and Morrison is in the crosshairs of some of his own party members. In stark contrast, the country's pavilion at Expo says it wants to take its visitors on a sensory journey developed by some of the world's finest storytellers. Ayanda Nyathi is at the pavilion and joins us now live from Dubai. I suppose airing your country's dirty laundry is not what's on the agenda at Expo 2020 Dubai.
Certainly not. In fact, it's quite a difficult thing to try and juggle. You know, whilst we've been here the past 6 months, we've always kind of struggled to reconcile what happens in the so-called real world, you know, whatever exists beyond the Expo, and how that translates into the kind of treatment that the different countries have within the Expo itself. But one consistency is that it is actually, you are able to almost create this insulated world where you're able to be removed from sometimes the politics of the country where you're from and give off, you know, the best that you can offer to those people who want to experience what is actually taking place in this global expo. We're currently at the Mobility District. It's located on the other side of where we typically come to you from, and Australia is one of the countries that's located here. Essentially, what they're hoping to do in mobility is to bridge the gap between the real world, so to speak, and the world as we know it virtually. Interestingly enough, the Mobility District itself has an iconic building, if you like, called the Alif, and that houses what we're told is actually the largest lift in the world. It's able to take about 600 people at one time. But of course, today is about Australia, so let's get you a sense of what their business is whilst they're here. Bring in our guest. Her name is Claire Cooney. She is the Deputy Commissioner General here in charge of the Australian Pavilion. It's lovely to speak to you, Claire. Thank you so much for making time for Newzroom Afrika here in Dubai. A dreamy sensory experience is what you're hoping your visitors will get. Help us understand how you put that together.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to capture throughout the story is tell a story of our country. We don't necessarily want to bombard people with information. We want to experience that tells the story of the country.
Claire, I'm going to interrupt you there. It looks like we're having problems with our mic. Apologies for that. I'm going to come a bit closer to you. We can drop that mic gently if you can, and I'm going to use mine so that we can capture everything you're able to say. Apologies. So, yeah, essentially my question is how are you essentially creating that experience that you're aiming your visitors to get?
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, we're trying to tell a story of contemporary Australia. So that includes the cultural elements as well as some science and technology and innovation. We're really trying to challenge some of the perhaps stereotypical perceptions of Australia. Yes, we have nice beaches, we have unique animals, but also we want to introduce people to the multicultural character of our society, introduce people to Indigenous culture as well if they're not familiar with that, and tell the story of what contemporary Australia is really like.
Absolutely. Part of that storytelling takes place through beautiful artwork that I've been able to see. It was done by an artist who's relatively young, sadly is no longer with us, but give us an idea of what you were trying to communicate with at least that aspect of your experience.
Yeah, the art in our pavilion is very important, I think, both the performing art and the visual art that we have here. That particular artist, Josh Muir, the work that he's done in the entrance tunnel to our pavilion draws on some traditional Indigenous aspects of the art, but also really captures the street art culture that we have in Australia. So in a lot of major cities around the country, Melbourne, for example, you see very vibrant art throughout the streets. And so that's something that we wanted to bring here as well as a little piece of Australia in Dubai.
Absolutely. It'd be remiss to speak about any pavilion's experience without touching on things like COVID-19 and the ways through which it's pushed everyone to do things differently. Interestingly enough, you had a lot of virtual discussions, engagements, and those ironically drew a whole lot more visitors than the people who are walking through the gates.
Yeah, we managed. It was challenging, I've got to say, but we've got a good digital platform. We've had some entirely virtual events, some hybrid. We've managed to bring in speakers from around the world to take part in discussions here. The other challenge probably was our performing arts program. So we've got live music on this stage here every day, but we've drawn on Australian artists who are not only coming from Australia, but from all around the world, from Las Vegas to Berlin to the Middle East. So yes, that was another way to deal with that challenge.
We're all hitting the home stretch, burning that final oil before we say our final goodbyes tomorrow, actually. 6 months in the making. I can see the relief on your face. But I mean, of course, when you do that, you want to look back, and I wonder from your vantage point, how you're gauging whether or not you've been successful whilst you're being here.
Yeah, I think for us, a large part of our participation was focused on the connections that we can make. So obviously, geographically, Australia is quite far away from this part of the world and from a lot of other countries that we do work with. So I think the large part of our success here has just been the amount of engagement that we've had every day, whether it's business delegations coming through Dubai, the speakers from other countries that we've had take part in our events, and actually just the people-to-people connections that everyone here has been able to make with the staff from other pavilions and all the visitors that come through our space. So yeah, for us, I think that's the main signal of our success, is those connections and the ongoing legacy that they will hopefully have for us.
Which is certainly the mission for those who are located here in the Mobility District. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Really do appreciate your time here on Newzroom Afrika. Claire Cooney is part of the people who, essentially run the Australian Pavilion. In fact, she is the Deputy Commissioner General here, running the site, standing behind us. And we are approaching the tail end of what is actually taking place here. But I tell you what, activities are certainly not slowing down. It is busier than it's ever been, at least since I've been here. And the next time we catch up, Michelle, it'll be goodbye from here in Dubai.
And I can't wait. Ayanda Nyathi, thanks very much indeed.